Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I start by asking how many of you are former or current members of the armed forces who are considering a transition into entrepreneurship? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a few tools which I've picked up or I'm picking up on my journey since I left the forces, and I hope that some of them may be of use to you. I'd emphasise that they're all, for me, a work in progress. I don't claim mastery of any of these, but I'll tell you what they are. I started my career as a Royal Marine. Do we have any other Royal Marines here? Excellent. Good, good. I was a Royal Marine from 1995 to 2000, and I left the Royal Marines and went to JP Morgan, an investment bank in the city. While I was with JP Morgan, I spent a little bit of time in London, a little bit of time on Wall Street, and a little bit of time in the Middle East. I was there as the dot-com bubble was bursting, and while I was there, watching this amazing series of episodes unfold, I was trying to figure out what was going on. It was all completely new to me. I came with a very fresh perspective, having spent the last 5 years not enjoying all of the bubble, but wondering what it was all about while I did other things. So I came with a very fresh perspective, perhaps, and that led me with a friend to set up an organisation called Bmycharity.com. This was really a traditional business which happened to take advantage of new media. We'd spotted the opportunity to improve something that was already there, which was the way in which charities raised money by inviting people to go and collect sponsorship from their friends. We thought this was a process that the internet was ideally suited to. A great way of capturing information, moving money, spreading a word, and launching appeals. So we created Bmycharity.com. Around about the same time, I realized that there were still a few very large gaps in my knowledge set. So I set out also to do an MBA. And I did an MBA while founding the business, which was a great combination of learning and practical experience at the same time. The same time we launched Bmycharity, the same month, another organisation called JustGiving.com launched. JustGiving.com had raised money before the bubble burst. So while me and Matt were working evenings and weekends on a borrowed laptop, they had a team of 20 and a substantial sum of venture capital from the late 1990s. Notwithstanding that, we did in that first year get up to 30% market share, which with the sales force of yours truly, we were pleased by. We realised that neither they nor we, I think, were seeing the growth we expected. And so it actually looked for us as though the situation was pretty ideal because we had virtually no burn rate, whereas they had a lot of mouths to feed. Unfortunately, from our point of view, and perhaps fortunately from theirs, in 2002 or 3, they got some backing from a very, very impressive investor who I think his interest was not just economic, which was a kind of nightmare scenario for us because, of course, we couldn't compete just on the basis of speed, aggression, determination, the kind of things that we thought the Marines set us up well for. And it really set us on a route of looking at other ways to compete, ways of changing the game. So we introduced giftshare.com. Giftshare.com was like Bmycharity.com, but without the charity in it. It was a very simple, what's now called crowd-funded mechanism to enable people to club together to get large ticket gifts, whether that was a retirement gift or a birthday present. So very similar in many respects to some current peer-to-peer models. And again, that was a 2005-06 innovation from us. We sold Bmycharity. Eventually, our search, if you like, for the exit resulted in us selling that business to Help for Heroes, in fact, who I'm delighted are here today. GiftShare, while we were focusing on the sale of Bmycharity, we put GiftShare back on the shelf, where it remains ready to be wheeled out when we see the market signals are right, and if, of course, we see the market signals are right. After we sold Bmycharity, I was contacted by various people, and a couple of them, one of them I'd served with, in fact, in Northern Ireland, and he had set up with a friend a small community forum, which really was just a joke to start with, which explains its name. The organisation in call, I'm sure many of you, if not most of you, will have come across. It's the Army Rumour Service, better known as ARSE. And the Army Rumour Service came to me and explained that they had 600,000 visitors to their site every month. And that really was the beginning of This Tribe, which is an organisation that I am co-founder and one of the directors of, which provides a range of equipment, not just to people in the armed forces, but their families, the broader security industry, and the outdoor market as well. And in addition to that, I've also been doing some corporate finance advisory work, which is really for me an opportunity to broaden my skill set and learn a little bit more about those end of the entrepreneurial journey experiences where you actually buy and or sell businesses. So just to tease out from that the tools that I've picked up, which I hope maybe I've used to you. As I'm sure all of you know, the Royal Marines have a standard issue toolkit. Does anyone know what's in that toolkit? A roll mat? Okay. Usually at this point someone says a ball gown. It has two items. One is a hammer and the other is duct tape. And I think you'll find many Marines will say these are the solutions to almost all of life's problems. You can really succeed with these two. I would wholeheartedly endorse that view. I would just suggest that the hammer perhaps is a great metaphor for determination. As an entrepreneur, not being waylaid by distractions, making sure you continue to push even when you feel resistance. The duct tape, perhaps, I can stretch a definition and say it's about adaptation and improvisation. And I'd suggest that this isn't just a Royal Marines thing. These are the characteristics that people in the armed forces really specialise in. Unfortunately, however, there are limits to that. And Abraham Maslow, the father of modern management, said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem starts to resemble a nail. And I felt that. So when I left, I was looking really to try and to learn some of the skills which were required in the commercial world. Perhaps the first port of call for me, and certainly something which JP Morgan did a fantastic job of introducing me to, was the spreadsheet. And so I'd heartily recommend learning a little bit about spreadsheets and, more broadly, financial analysis to anyone who is making this transition. The original killer app, the spreadsheet, is something which I certainly couldn't overstate the value of. I remember early in my time at JP Morgan scratching my head all night about a missing $47 million. It looked increasingly likely that there was some fraud at one of our very large clients. And when I showed this to my boss, he scratched his head for half a day and then said, it's a $1 billion balance sheet. $47 million is a rounding error. Don't worry about it. Useful to know how to use a spreadsheet. The next tool, which really was something which I learned most about on my MBA, is marketing. I was introduced really to marketing by a brilliant professor called Peter Doyle, who made the point that actually, unlike in the armed forces, where essentially you're a monopolist, you have a monopoly on providing certain services on behalf of the government. In most other worlds, most other industries, most other markets, you don't. You've got to, it's a beauty contest. You've got to win on your merits, and there are plenty of other people who can provide almost any service. The fifth tool was something really which became more and more apparent to me as we were running Bmycharity in a somewhat lopsided competition with our main rival, Just Giving. This is the sense of timing, the importance of addressing the right part of the market at the right time. So many of you will be familiar with the idea of a demand curve. Early adopters who pick up new things very quickly, then a phase where it becomes more and more popular, and then everyone's involved. We were well suited as a very, very fast-moving, light organisation to those early stages of the market. I think probably, and I shouldn't speak, of course, on behalf of my competitors, but I think we all realised that we'd arrived with online sponsorship before many people were ready for it, certainly before many charities were. So the pickup was slower than we expected. Timing is important, and it certainly informs my approach to markets today. The sixth tool is really related to that. It's an understanding of, and ideally an access to capital. There are many services, for example, at the British Library, which help entrepreneurs understand and find their way towards capital. I think it's really important to understand the kind of capital that you can deal with, whether it's your own or other people's. Can you afford to take a long view, or do you have to make sure that you have very low risk and the ability to turn the money around very fast? That's a very important question that every entrepreneur should address. What is the nature of the capital they deal with? Can they take risks, or do they have to be quite conservative in their approach? For us, Bmycharity had been a fantastic adventure, but we realized we needed bigger support, a larger balance sheet behind us. And as the market matured for those kind of services, it was no longer an advantage to be super nimble and innovative. You really need to have the resources of a large organization behind you. And we were delighted to find that relationship in Help for Heroes. Having sold Bmycharity, I was really back on the lookout again. And the next tool, the seventh tool I'm going to mention, is LinkedIn. I found this the single most powerful networking tool I've ever come across. I think success in entrepreneurship very largely depends on the networks you create. And so I'd recommend that wherever you go, you're always looking for an opportunity to learn from people and an introduction as well. Just as an illustration of this, have any of you heard of something called 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon? Many people make the point that Kevin Bacon either knows or has been in the same film as everyone else in Hollywood. And this is something which network theorists love. The idea that we're all only 7 or 6 removes away from anyone else in the world. Just to illustrate this, I thought I'd go onto LinkedIn a few days ago and find out how easy it would be for me to use LinkedIn to get in touch with Kevin Bacon. I found, to my surprise, I thought this would be a fruitless task, but sure enough, I know 7 people who have a mutual friend with Kevin Bacon. Now, I have no Hollywood connections myself, and perhaps most surprisingly of all, he only has 172 connections on LinkedIn. So, if any of you are considering starring in Footloose, the sequel, you may find that opportunities like that are closer at hand than you thought. But network analysis is only a small part of the networker's toolkit. The other part is more labor-intensive. And so the next tool I would mention is coffee. Drink as much coffee as you possibly can, with other people, ideally. Take the opportunity really to understand what it is that matters to them. Draw as much information as you can out of people. I'm constantly amazed by just how free people will be with their knowledge, their experience. And I certainly have enjoyed the last 2 years hugely because I've spent an awful lot of time drinking coffee with some fantastic people. The final tool I'll mention is the wisdom of the crowd. Business depends on the participation of groups of people. And understanding groups, I think, is really the single most important tool. And perhaps it's the summation of all the others I've described. If you understand groups, you can understand what to sell, who to sell it to, how to finance it, how to organize your organization. And if you doubt this, just consider the research that large groups, even of non-expert people, can produce. Massive public services like Wikipedia, for example, reflect the wisdom of crowds in a way which small teams of experts can't even hope to match. And in a developed world market like this one, where the population is aging, polarizing, maybe suffering a loss of relative advantage, and more locally where people are perhaps afraid and risk-averse and seeking reassurance that they're not outliers, understanding the crowd or crowds that you're in has never been more important. So my last exhortation would be to become a crowd pleaser. So these are the tools that I would encourage to any prospective entrepreneur to consider. For me, myself, the search goes on. I'm looking for my next opportunity, and I'm very pleased to be involved with Heropreneurs and hope to be able to share not only these tools, but also, true to my last point about crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, borrow as many tools from other people as I can. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me here, but thank you very much indeed.